Originally, this was going to be a 2021 book haul, but now we're over a month into 2022, so it's just a book haul. Anyway, it's been a really long time since I've done a book haul. I think my last one was mid 2020, so I've gotten a lot of books since then. I'm not about to go back through all my book hauls and see what I have and haven't shown yet. We're just gonna start from roughly the beginning of 2021 and go forward, which means I've got a lot of books to talk about, so let's just jump into it. I'm gonna be talking about these in like roughly chronological order as to when I purchased them, just to keep everything clear in my mind, so we're gonna be jumping all over the place to every area of my taste. First up are the first 3 volumes of the Kakegurui series. This manga series deals with like gambling at a high school, and it sounded really intriguing. Haven't read these yet, but definitely very high on my manga TBR. Next up is The Mask Falling by Samantha Shannon, which is the 4th book in the Bone Season series, aka my favorite ongoing series. I actually recently reread the 1st and 2nd books in the series and started the 3rd one. Didn't get very far into it. I need to pick it up again. The number of times I've described this series makes me feel like a broken record, but let's go. This takes place in a dystopian, futuristic London in which people have clairvoyant abilities, but it is extremely illegal to have those abilities. Not even to use them, just to be clairvoyant. Our main character, Paige, is one of the rarest form of clairvoyance, and she's in an underground voyant gang. The first 2 books both got 5 out of 5 stars from me. They're fantastic. Upon a reread, I actually enjoyed the second one more than the first one, and I'm just behind. I really need to continue the series ASAP. Next up are 3 books by one of my favorite authors, and those are South of the Border, West of the Sun, Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman, and what I talk about when I talk about running, all by Haruki Murakami. This is a short story collection. I believe this is one of his more realistic novels, and this is a nonfiction. Early last year, I think someone who lives in this general area was like making their way through Murakami books, because every time I would go to Half Price Books, another one would just be sitting there. I didn't see another one for quite a while, but then the next time I went, 1Q84 was sitting there on the shelves, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like with most Murakami books, I don't know what these are about. I go in blind. They're just weird, but also oddly mundane, and just always fascinating. Next up is Kim Ji-young, born 1982, by Cho Namju. This is a feminist Korean novel that I first heard about when a couple of K-pop idols read it, and it was like really scandalous that they were reading it. And then it popped up at Half Price Books, and I was intrigued, so I picked it up. So far, none of the books I've talked about are ones I've read, but I did read quite a bit last year, just none of those so far. Next up is The Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson. This is a continuation slash spin-off novel from the original Truly Devious trilogy, which I absolutely loved, and I haven't read this yet, but I'm very intrigued too. Next up is The Escape Room by Megan Golden. This one's intrigued me for a long time because I love escape rooms. I've only gotten to do 2, but if it were less expensive and less reliant on other people, I would do them all the time. I find them so much fun. So like a thriller set around an escape room sounds fascinating. You'd think I would have picked this up already, but I've heard really mixed things about it, so I've been hesitant. But it was at Half Price Books, it was inexpensive, I finally caved. Next up, we've got more manga, and those are the first 10 volumes of the Corda de Oro series. The only thing I know about this is that it's like a light, cute, fluffy series that centers around a like music competition at a school, and our main character has a magic violin. I love competitions in books, I love music, I love magic, and sometimes I'm in the mood for something cute and fluffy. I haven't picked it up yet because I don't have access to the rest of the series yet, but it's definitely in the plans and I want to pick it up soon. Next up, a nonfiction and also a signed edition, and that is You Will Get Through This Night by Dan Howell. Dan's been one of my favorite YouTubers for like a decade at this point. He's also just generally been one of my favorite humans for a very long time. I enjoy him a lot. I will always give him my support when I can, so here we are. Next up, in the first of a very long series of books I bought because of work, we have Legendary Children. We got this into work over the summer, and it's like an exploration of Drag Race and the way that drag culture has affected it and vice versa. I was listening to the audiobook and then I set it down for no reason in particular, and I have yet to pick it up again. So We need to do that. I'm already like halfway through, so I need to finish it. Also, my poor day 6 bookmark has just been hanging out in this book for months, so we need to give him a break. Next up is the Decagon House Murders by Yukito Ayatsuji. I came across this book after reading this author's other book, Another, which was turned into an anime series. And true to form, the second I saw that it was And Then There Were None and Agatha Christie-esque, I bought it. A group of students in a mystery club go to this island for like a retreat or something, and one of them dies, which means one of them probably did it. I love that. It's cliche, but I enjoy it every time. Also, they start dying one by one, so it's like, it really is And Then There Were None, and I'm excited. Next up is The Ivies by Alexa Dunn. Alexa Dunn, if you're not aware, is a fellow YouTuber and obviously an author. That's why she created her YouTube channel. She's published at least a couple novels before this one, but this is the first one to catch my eye because, as you can probably guess, it's death at a school. And what do I love more than death at a school? Nothing. It's basically a group of students who are like competing to get into the Ivy Leagues, and one of them turns up dead. Shocking. I feel like I don't even need to explain myself at this point. I enjoy stories like this. We get it. Next up is Rules for Vanishing by Kate Alice Marshall. Kayla from Books and Lala read this, and I believe she really liked it, but honestly I was sold from the second that she explained the premise and then talked about how it has kind of mixed media in here. Not necessarily like in House of Leaves or something like that, but there's just different formatting in here that really intrigues me. It deals with like someone going missing and like some sort of ghost element, and there's a game to it. I love all of that. I'm intrigued. I bought it 6 months ago, but I'm still intrigued. I promise I've read some of these books. Next up is another book that we got in at work, and I was intrigued enough to buy it, and that is The Department of Truth. This is volume 1 of a comic series. I believe volume 2 is out at this point, but I'm not sure. This series revolves around like conspiracy theories and there being a whole branch of the government dedicated to conspiracy theories. And that premise is really cool, but even more than that, the thing that intrigued me is this art. Like even just the cover itself, the art style in this is really cool. My struggle with this and some other ones that I've purchased recently is that as much as I'm intrigued by this, it is the first volume in a comic series. There's gonna be tons of volumes after it, and I don't want to start it now because then I'm not gonna have anything else to read and it's gonna make me sad. But I think I will have to read it before buying another volume, so I'll wait a little bit, then I'll read it. I'm gonna make this quick because they're very heavy and I don't want to hold them. I also got the 3rd and 4th illustrated Harry Potter books because of course I did. It took me long enough, I know. This was at Half Price Books. It was pretty inexpensive. I caved. I also got these 2 illustrated editions of the first 2 Harry Potter books. These are really cool and they have like pop-ups. They're really pretty. I have a problem, I'm aware. Next up, we have another very predictable book for me. Ace of Spades. Guess what happens with this one? If you guessed that something dark and mysterious and possibly deadly happens at a school, you'd be correct. I've heard amazing things about this from everyone. I haven't heard a single bad thing about it. Why have I not picked it up yet? I don't know. I'm stupid. It is at the top of my TBR. I'm very excited to get to it. Next up is Ninth House. Truly, I don't know why I hadn't gotten this until now. I think it was just because I heard mixed things, but like secret societies, dark things, possibly death at a school. My alley, directly in the middle of it. Next up is a book I truly can't believe I haven't read, and that's Major Detours by Zachary Sergey. This is yet another book that came in at work. I saw it and I was fascinated, so I had to get it. So this is a choose-your-own-adventure novel centered around a mysterious tarot deck that these 4 friends find themselves in possession of. Not only that, but there's a spot in the back for you to write down like what decisions you make in the like choose your own adventure, and there's like a personality test like attached to that, like whatever your choices are that you make will tell you about yourself. And like do you know what I'm a sucker for? I'm a sucker for a choose your own adventure, and I'm a sucker for personality tests, so you got me there. Also, this cover, that's first why I looked at it and thought it was cool, because I thought the cover was pretty. And then I read what it was about and I was like, oh, game changer. So after how much I've talked, especially in this video, but in most videos, about my love of dark academia and murder mysteries at a school and like mysterious dark things happening at schools, some of you might be like, hey Kristen, did you know that there was an Owl Crate box this summer that was centered around dark academia? Yeah, I did. This is A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee, which I got in the Owl Crate box, and it's like the special edition cover with the like silver pages. Literally haven't gotten an Owl Crate in like 6 years, 7 years, something like that. But they said dark academia and I said yes please. Mysterious things, witchcraft, and death at a boarding school. What more could I want, really? Next up is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. Now if you're one of the rare people who watched some of my very old videos, you might be aware that I used to have this book and then I sold it. So why am I here? Many reasons, but mostly because my best friend's mom loves this book and raved about it, and my plan was to read it before the next time I saw her. So now my plan is to read it before the next time I see her, which should be sometime this year, and we can talk about it. She's great. She loves books too, and we like to talk about books, and I let her down this time because she talked about several books she really enjoyed, and I have yet to read any of them. But also there's an adaptation of this that came out, I think, so that'll be fun to check out. Heading back to manga land, we have the first 2 volumes of the Future Diary manga series. Finally, here we are. I read the entirety of this series in 2021 and I enjoyed it, so I started buying the volumes. Currently, several of them I think are not in print, which is why I don't have them, but I got the first 2, so we've at least got to that point. I also think a couple of them weren't ever published in English. I just read fan translations online. Anyway, if you're not aware, this features a death game because it's me, and of course it does. These 12 people are competing in a death game to become God. But each of them has some form of a diary that will tell them what is going to happen in battles against each other. It's hard to describe. I'm not sure I'm describing it well, but basically our main character has a future diary that allows him to see what's going to happen to him like in the future in just like a few minutes. Some people have diaries that say like what is going to happen to someone they love, or like the person that's most important to them, or something like that. They all use these diaries that tell them what's going to happen in order to like outmaneuver each other in battles. It's fun, it's kind of silly, it's a little stupid, but I enjoyed it. We're doing great here because the next ones are also ones that I've already read, and those are volumes 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 of the monster manga series, The Perfect Edition. I finally finished the series in 2021 and it was great, and so I started buying the copies, and some of them are not in stock. So this is what I have. I also already had the first volume. This is an older but very famous manga series by Naoki Urasawa that has also been turned into an anime. It's a long series, so it can definitely be a bit slow in spots. It doesn't always seem obvious how things connect up, but it is really, really awesome. And it's one of my favorite psychological thrillers I've read. Definitely a slow burn, definitely have to have some patience with it, but it's fascinating. Next up, we've got more manga, and those are the first 2 volumes of Anonymous Noise. I honestly don't remember too much about the premise of this one. I just remember it deals with music. That's always fun. I always enjoy music. Next up, we've got 11/22/63 by Stephen King. I don't know why, but for some reason, of all the Stephen King books, this is the one that's always low-key intrigued me. I started the audiobook over the summer and I got like a decent way into it, not super far, maybe like, I don't know, 50 pages in, roughly that far, and it was intriguing, but I ended up setting it down. I plan to come back to it, but I have the book now, so that should be easier. Next up is another questionable repurchase of a book I used to own, and that's Preludes and Nocturnes by Neil Gaiman, which is the first volume of the Sandman series. I heard great things about it, I read it, and I thought it was just okay. But lately I've been wanting to do either a video or series where I go back and I reread books that I read in the past that I was kind of underwhelmed by, but I think I will actually really enjoy now. Or the opposite, rereading old favorites and see if they hold up. That concept is one I've been throwing around in my brain for a while. We'll see. I got this one because of that. Back when I read this, weird stuff wasn't really necessarily my thing, and now I'm kind of like the more weird the better, so I think I might actually enjoy this more. We'll see. Next up, we've got the first 3 volumes of Your Lie in April. I really liked volume 1 when I read it almost 2 years ago at this point. How has it been that long? And it's a series I've been wanting to pick up for quite a while now. I don't have the rest of the volumes. Once I do, I will be reading this because the first volume was really great. This is another that's centered around music. It seems to be like partially cute, fluffy contemporary, but also I think there's gonna be some dark stuff in here, like deep emotional stuff. I don't know if I'm prepared, but I'm excited and intrigued. So I keep catching ones that I totally missed. Next up is Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. I definitely got this way earlier in the year because I read it earlier in the year, but here it is. Kayla loved this and it featured weird, mysterious things happening at a college, so obviously I was intrigued. I read it, I think, in like spring or early summer, and I liked it. It was like a 3 out of 5. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. Definitely nothing polarizing like a lot of people's opinions seem to be. So my favorite horror movie of all time is The Ring, and I've always known that The Ring was adapted from a Japanese horror movie, but what I didn't know was that the Japanese horror movie was based on a novel. This is Ring by Koji Suzuki, and I read it like in October, I think, like close to the spooky season, and again, 3 out of 5. It was okay. Honestly, after reading the book and watching both movies, I really wish I could take all 3 of them and mash them up and together into something that was slightly better overall, because the American version of the movie is still my favorite, honestly, but there are elements of both this and the Japanese movie that I think were better done, and I wish I could just put into that one to make it better overall. Regardless, if you like either version of the movie and you haven't read this, definitely give it a check out, because it's definitely a lot more logically sound than either of the movies is. And now we jump into TikTok. Specifically, obviously, BookTok. I downloaded TikTok quite a while ago, but I only started dabbling in BookTok and like getting into it within the past several months, and that led to me getting books, because of course it did. First up, The Atlas Six, because it's dark academia but fantasy. Also, there's a competition. All of this is up my alley. Honestly, I would have picked this up already if not for the fact that I believe it is the first in a series, and I don't like reading series if only one is out. Next up are A Deadly Education and The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik. Again, we're at a school of magic, and mysterious, possibly deadly things happen. Shocking that I would be interested in this. Again, I believe that there's a 3rd book in the series, not sure if it's a trilogy or series, but I'm waiting for that one to come out and then I will read it. And then there's the series where I just threw that rule to the wind and I read the first 2 books in the series even though it's a trilogy and the 3rd book's not out. And that is, of course, The Inheritance Games and The Hawthorne Legacy. One of my friends really loves this series and she told me she wanted me to read it because I'd either love it or hate it. The series centers around the main character being given this massive fortune. She doesn't know why. This guy died, left his entire fortune to her instead of his family, and the only stipulation is she has to live in his house for a year. But there's also a game element in which she has to solve these riddles that he's left. I enjoyed these first 2 books. I gave them both like a low 4 out of 5, like a solid 8 out of 10. They were good. I really enjoyed them, and I'm really intrigued to see what happens next, but I'm not like in love with them. But I am eagerly anticipating the 3rd book, which I think comes out in August, perhaps? Continuing with the TikTok faves, next up we've got The Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. Once again, I have actually read these. The premise of the series very much reminded me of Truly Devious in the fact that the premise of this first book is that our main character is trying to solve the mystery of this girl who went missing / died several years before. A body was never found, but someone was arrested for the murder and she doesn't think that he did it. So for her school project, she's opening the case back up again on her own and trying to figure out what happened. I flew through this trilogy. I read all 3 books over the course of I think 4 or 5 days. I really enjoyed all 3 of them. The last book in the series was my favorite. I gave that like a full 5 out of 5. It was fantastic. Book 2 was like 4 out of 5. It was solid. It was good. I liked it a lot. Still haven't decided my rating on the first one. I'm not sure it's like a full 5 out of 5, but definitely 4.5 out of 5 at the very least. Very fascinating, really fun ride. We're nearing the end, I promise. Next up is The Midnight Library. I'd been intrigued by this one for a while, but it's another one that I picked up because my best friend's mom. Just like I always enjoy mysterious things happening at a school, mysterious things happening at a library is pretty fun too. I definitely have more of a vague idea of what this one's about than other books on the list, but I've heard great things, so I'm very intrigued. Next up is Raka Braves of the Six Flowers. This is the first in a light novel series that has since been adapted into an anime, and the anime intrigued me, so I picked up the book. In this book, the world is at the brink of falling apart, and when this happens, like 6 people are called together to be like the warriors that are going to come together to save the world, and that has happened several times throughout history. But when these people come together in this one, there are 7 of them. So it's kind of a like, there's a hidden traitor among us, like which one is it? Kind of like a mafia-esque thing. I always love that. It's very and then there were none-esque, and it's one of my favorite tropes. So I'm gonna read this and then watch the anime. Very excited. I can't remember if I've already shown this in a book haul or not, but I saw it on the shelf and I didn't think I had. So here we are, and that is In the Hall with the Knife by Diana Peter Freund, not sure which one. This is an actual, like, part of the Clue franchise, Clue branded book. It's also set at a boarding school and there's a murder mystery. So obviously I'm excited. This seems to skew a little bit more middle grade and the reviews haven't been like amazing, but it's Clue and it's a murder mystery and it takes place at a school. So I'm gonna enjoy it either way. If you weren't already aware, Clue is my favorite movie. I loved the board game growing up. I loved the movie. I love Clue. Next up is One Dark Throne by Kendara Blake. Still haven't read Three Dark Crowns, but it was at Half Price Books, so I got it. Next up, we have the Barnes & Noble hardcover sale that happened right at the end of the year. I replaced my original copy of Carry On and got the second and third books in the trilogy. I'd been wanting to get this cover for the longest time, and it was just sitting there asking to be bought, so I bought it. Also, this one's signed, so that's cool. I've only read the first book in this, but I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 5 stars, but it's been a long time. That was back when it was only a standalone, and I didn't realize there would be other books. But I loved these characters, and although I've been iffy about continuing the series, I do love these covers a lot, so I'm kind of okay with having these even if I don't ever end up reading them. Then I also got The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta, which is one I've been meaning to pick up for a long time. The premise of this has always sounded really awesome, and I love anything dealing with drag culture, so here we go. Also, I don't think I've ever read a book that was written in verse, which is really cool and definitely another selling point of this. We're now at another one that I've actually read, and that is Rabbits by Terry Miles. Terry Miles is the co-creator of several podcasts that I've really loved throughout the years. They're all like fictional podcasts, but they're told in kind of like a reporter-esque nonfiction style. So there's one called Rabbits, which I haven't listened to, but I might go back and listen to now that I've read and enjoyed this book. There's also Tanis, which I believe is really inspired by House of Leaves, and that's been one of my favorite podcasts for a long time. And my absolute favorite from them is The Black Tapes, which I haven't listened to in a long time, but it was my favorite when I consistently listened to their content. They're all like a little weird, a little spooky, a little mysterious, and it's like supernatural. In this book, the main character is obsessed with this game called Rabbits, which isn't really a game. No one really knows. You don't even know if you're playing half the time. You just follow patterns and see where they lead. And sometimes they lead to some really weird stuff. Like the other things I mentioned, it's a little spooky, it's a little supernatural, it's very weird, but I enjoyed that. I ended up giving this, I think, either a 3.5 or a 4 out of 5. I enjoyed it. It was a fun ride. The next one I got in that sale is another one that I discovered through work, and that is When All the Girls Are Sleeping. Guess what this is about? If you guessed death at a boarding school, good job. There's also a ghost element to this. Listen, I see death and boarding school or death and school or murder and school, murder mystery school, and I just get it. That's how I operate. Those are my keywords for loving something. I'm excited, I'm intrigued. And then the last Barnes & Noble hardcover is XX by Ryan Hughes. This is another that Kayla read and she didn't really enjoy it, but I have always been intrigued by it, and the formatting has always seemed really cool, and it was kind of like just the last push I needed to decide, yeah, I think I'm actually gonna get this. Don't really know that much what it's about. Don't really mind that so much. I'm just intrigued for what a ride this is gonna be. It has a lot of mixed media, and I think it's vaguely alien-y. There you go. And now we come to the very last section, the last 3 books on here, which are all duplicates. Because a couple weeks ago, I finally reread If We Were Villains by ML Rio, which famously is the book that got me into dark academia, changed my reading taste entirely, made me fall in love with the genre, and I read that in the summer of 2017, and for the longest time I haven't reread it, I haven't gone back to it, and I was almost to the point, like, you know, when you're not sure that you really loved it that much, or you're not sure you'll love it if you reread it. and one of my friends read it for the first time, and that caused me to want to reread it, and so I reread it, and it broke me all over again. I love this book so much, and I've been watching so many videos of people annotating their books that I was like, guess it's time to buy an extra copy and start annotating. So I'm currently about 65 pages into this, and I've been annotating this, and it's been a lovely experience. And so because of that, I also bought an extra copy of The Secret History so that I can annotate it after this, and The Chimes so that I can annotate it after this, because I have a problem. And I can't just annotate the pretty versions that I have. No, I have to have second copies of each of them and annotate those. To be fair though, this is one of my favorite covers I own. It's gorgeous, it's pretty. This has a more papery cover than this, which is like a slick, I don't know what. This is the British edition that I got when it first came out. And the same goes for my copy of If We Were Villains. It's like the original hardcover with the buttery cover, the deckled edges, and like the skull cover, and it's so pretty. I don't want to do anything to this, so I will not, which is the purpose of the paperback. I think that's everything. It better be everything, because I'm done. That was so many books. I don't even want to attempt to count them right now, or like how many I've read versus haven't read. Don't want to know that number, but I will probably, once I edit this, put a number here saying how many books I showed you in this video. It's probably a lot. It's probably way too many. That is it for this book haul. Thank you so much for watching and sitting through all of these books that I decided I needed in my life. Let me know if you read any of them and what you thought of them. I would love to know. As always, links to all my social media are down in the description, mostly Goodreads and Twitter. Those are the two I'm most active on. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.